Dave Johnson here, Take a Break Spas and Billiards. We're doing a video series here. We're going to explain to our customers about how we're going to use bromine as a primary source of sanitizer for our system. Hey everybody, what we want to do here is let's talk about our stain and scale control. This is a product that we want to put into the water in the beginning and every time we drain and refill our hot tub. And by the way, every time we drain and refill, we recommend doing about every 4 to 6 months, go through complete drain and refill. And onto our stain and scale. So what we've got here is Leisure Time Metal Gone and Leisure Time Defender. Our Leisure Time Metal Gone is our stain. This sequesters irons and coppers. What it's going to do is prevent those from building up and leaving a film around the edge of the hot tub. We want to use this, a full bottle, every time we drain and refill the hot tub. The directions actually tell us take the bottle while the spa is filling, go ahead and pour it evenly around the spa's water's edge, then go ahead and finish filling the hot tub and run the filter for at least 30 minutes. That's what the directions tell us. Of course, if you're the first time, the spa is going to heat up for several hours before it's ready to go. The next thing we want to do when we get started is we want to use Spa Defender. What Defender is this is our scale control. We want to use this at the rate of 2 ounces in the beginning. We can just pour this directly into the water, and we want to use this 2 ounces weekly. There are lines down the side of our bottle here. I'm not sure if you can see this on the video, but there are a couple little white lines that go down the side. These are in 2 ounce increments. When you do purchase this product down the road, a lot of times we actually have it in a 32 ounce version as well, and this will have 2 ounce increments as well, so you'll know that that's how much you need to use. And again, it's 2 ounces up to 800 gallons, which is pretty much every hot tub. If you do have a swim spa, you're going to want to use this at the rate of 4 ounces weekly. Again, 4 ounces in the beginning and 4 ounces weekly. So once we get our stain and scale controls into our hot tub, the next things that we want to do, and we're going to go into, is there's 3 main categories that we want to look at to keep our water clean and clear. And so how we want to address these, we're going to talk about these in each segment of this video. The first one we want to talk about is filtration. Filtration first. The next thing we're going to talk about is our water balance. And the last thing we're going to talk about is our sanitizer. So let's go over to our filters and we're going to check those out and talk about filtration. Okay guys, what we're going to talk about in this segment is filtration. Number 1 on our list of the top 3 things we want to talk about to keep our water clean and clear. What we've got behind us here, you can see we've got lots of filters. It's kind of our filter wall. We've pretty much got a filter for just about every make and model of hot tub that's out there, especially of course the hot tubs we sell. Why do we say filtration first? Why we say filtration is because we can control it. We know when was the last time we cleaned our filter, when was the last time we replaced our filter. Once we've checked that off the list and know that if our water looks a little cloudy or funny, we can say it's not our filter. But if it's been a while since you cleaned it, or it's been a while since you've replaced it, let's address that issue, because that could very well be your problem, and more often than not it typically is. So what we've got here, this is a standard filter cartridge. This is out of an 880 Sundance filter. This is very standard filter media. This is a product that you want to just take and spray out with your garden hose. And depending on the size of the filter that you've got, let's look over here on our wall if we can. We've got some different filters here. What we've got are probably the most popular size filters. These are all pretty much 50 square foot filters. This is maybe just slightly larger. No, that's still a 50 square footer. This is out of Bullfrog Spa. This is probably the most popular size filter. You will see this in your 200 series jacuzzi spas. You'll also see this in your 680 series Sundance spas, the very filter that we're going to use. This is also a very popular filter that we're going to use in our swim spas. If you happen to have one of those, you happen to use 2 of these in a swim spa. Very standard filter media. On the smaller filters, guys, with regular use, you're going to want to take this filter and spray it out as much as every 2 to 3 weeks, at least once a month. We want to take and spray this out. These filters will last you a good year to a year and a half. Very consistent throughout the line with all the filters. After maybe 6 or 7 months, if you're spraying these filters out and they're not coming very clean, there's a product called Filter Clean. And we can talk about that here in another segment, but we can soak the filters overnight in Filter Clean. It's a degreaser. You soak it overnight, you spray it out really good, it'll make that filter look like brand new. So these filters need to be cleaned probably every 2 to 3 weeks. In our next segment here, this is a filter that's used in our 300 series jacuzzi or in our 780 series Sundance spa. How these filters are used, this filter again we want to spray out maybe every 3 to 4 weeks. The neat thing about if it is a 300 series is you'll actually have 2 of these filters. You can go a month easily before you need to spray these things out. But if you're using it like crazy, what I like to tell people is the general rule of thumb is if you pull that out after 2 weeks and you're spraying it out real good with the garden hose, I even take it into the shower sometimes. There's a shower head that I can spray it out with, where we have some really neat filter attachment tools that'll work on the end of your hose that you can use. And if you're spraying that filter out and you're seeing the cloudy water that's coming away from that, and you can tell that the water the filter was dirty, then obviously you know it was time to clean the filter. In the 780 system, like your Chelseas, your Hamiltons, and all your Sundance spas, these happen to have a micro clean filter. It's a 2-part system. When Jets 1 turns on, it pulls through our pleated filter. We're going to spray this guy out again as much as once a month. It's 75 square foot, so it's a nice big filter that holds a lot of stuff. This is our circulation pump filter. So what that means is our circulation pump that we recommend running 24/7 is going to pull through our deep loading donut filters, what we call these guys sometimes. These only last about 3 to 4 months. They're not very cleanable. You'll start to make it fall apart, and if it does, you basically just want to take this guy out, throw it away, replace it with a new one every 3 to 4 months. As we move on to our segment here with our 400 series, this is our deep loading 400 series filter. Same thing as this guy. You want to replace this again about every 3 to 4 months. The top half, the neat thing about this particular system, if you happen to have a 400 series, if you don't, we'll be brief so you guys don't have to listen to all this stuff that doesn't pertain to you. But there's a bucket that goes underneath this, and on a 400 series, everything has to go through our pleated filter first. Then it ends up in our micro clean filter at the bottom. Every three months, replace it. This one's going to last you again for a couple of years. Spray it out. I probably spray this guy out once a month. This could get pretty dirty. And then on our 880 series of our Sundance, this is actually an inner core and the outer core. Everything has to go through the outer. This fits up inside of this particular product. In fact, yes, we happen to have one right here that's out of the, so this fits up in here and nests that way. Everything has to go through our pleated filter first. Spray this guy out again, usually once a month is adequate. And what slips through our main filter media gets caught in our micro clean filter. And these will last you about 6 months. You'll want to replace this every 6 months. But again, guys, most importantly, clean your filters. Clean them more often than less often. Your water will love you for it. It'll be cleaner, it'll be clearer. Okay guys, what we want to talk about as well is the filter cycles of your hot tub. What we want to recommend is on your spas that have 24-hour filtration, such as your 880, your 780, your 400, actually even the 500, 400, and 300 series of jacuzzi, and again your 780 and 880 series of Sundance. Those spas are designed with circulation pumps. They have 24-hour circulation pumps. Out of the factory, they may not be set for 24 hours. Typically, they're going to be pre-programmed for 8 hours. What we recommend is run that for 24 hours a day. Go into the owner's manuals. We can also help you set this up if you need to have any questions. We're here for you. But we want to make sure to run those 24 hours a day. It'll only cost you just a couple of few dollars a month to increase those filter cycles. You'll get 3 times the amount of volume of water going through those filters every day. And in conjunction, if it's in a Sundance or in a jacuzzi, you're also going to add that clear ray device that is going to be on for 24 hours a day. And that's really important to help keep that water clean. You'll end up using less sanitizer. Your water will stay a lot clearer. If it happens to be a 200 series jacuzzi or a 680 series of Sundance, there is the way to increase those filter cycles. Typically it's done by holding the plus and negative buttons. This is a 200 series jacuzzi. If we're going to hold the plus and negative buttons at the same time, it's going to pull up and say F and a number in the window. We want to set that to an F3 mode. F3 means it's going to kick on for 2 hours every 6 hours. It talks about this in the owner's manual, but it's the maximum filtration that we can do in that particular series. And we recommend maxing your filter cycles out. It's going to keep your water much cleaner and clearer. If you happen to have any other brands or used spas, refer to the owner's manuals that will give you enough filtration. With a lot of spas that are using a primary jet pump to do its filtration, typically what we want to recommend is a minimum of 4 to 5 hours a day filtration. And if it's getting heavier use, you may need to increase that, or you may need to decrease that. Okay everybody, what we're going to talk about here in this segment is water balance. It's the second element that we want to use to keep our water clean, keep our water clear and looking perfect. First one again was filtration. The second one is water balance. The third one again we're going to talk about is sanitizer. So with water balance, what is water balance? Well, water balance is when pH and alkalinity are balanced. Okay. It also takes into account calcium hardness. But here in Utah, we run about 250 right out of the tap, and anywhere from 200 to 400 is perfectly acceptable on calcium. Again, 250 for us, so we're perfect. We're not really going to talk a whole lot about calcium hardness. We're going to dive into the most important factors of water balance, which are pH and alkalinity. So why is this important? Well, if our pH and alkalinity are high, it's what we call base. It means the water has too much alkalinity, too much calcium hardness in it as well, and it will react with it. And it'll take those little teeny particulates and it'll stick it to everything it possibly can. But what it feels like is really rough sandpaper underneath the water. If you've ever felt that in a hot tub or even in a pool, for instance, it's because the alkalinity and pH are too high. Okay, and the water will also look a little stale. It just doesn't have a vibrant, really clean, clear clarity to it. On the other side is low alkalinity, and low alkalinity and pH is acidic. And acid, the water wants the nutrients, so it's pitting. It's pulling it from you, it's pulling it from the heater, your plumbing, your pumps, your jets, any of those kinds of things to make that water balance. And it'll give you a really uncomfortable feeling on your skin as well because it's basically acid. Okay, so that's our low acid pH alkalinity conditions, and our high base or alkalinity pH when it's high. Now, what we're going to do is, how do we test it? Well, we have our Insta test here. Maybe we can zoom in on this a little bit. So we've got Insta test. This is the three-way test. What does that mean? Well, it means it's going to test on the top pad. It's going to test for bromine and or free chlorine. It's going to turn purple. The middle test here is for alkalinity. We want to be with the OK bracket where it's 80 to 120. And the pH here, we want to be on the OK bracket, which is 7.2 to 7.8. Now, when we test our water for the first time, if water were to be cold, you would see that your alkalinity is high and your pH is perfect, because the cities do a really good job of maintaining our pH and giving us good pH balanced water. But what happens is because the alkalinity is high and it's up around 200, maybe even 220, it's going to pull the pH up. Once the pH goes up, we need to knock it down. Now, more importantly, what's going to happen is we're going to use our spot down to lower our pH and alkalinity. And if we read here on the front of the bottle, it's going to say that it lowers pH and total alkalinity. So it controls both. We want to monitor it primarily through pH. Okay. And the opposite of that, let's use our other product here that we've got for you, is spot up. So this raises pH and total alkalinity. Now let's go to what happens when we very first fill up our hot tub and our water gets hot. Once our water gets hot and our pH jumps up to about 8.5, what we want to do is we want to knock it down to our 7.5 so we have our balanced pH. How do we do that? Well, we do that with 2 capfuls at a time. 2 capfuls is going to lower basically a full point from 8.5 to 7.5 on pH, and it's going to lower it from basically 200 right out of the tap down to about 180, even to 170. Ultimately, what we'll need to balance our water for the first time here with our pH here in Utah is we're going to use basically 6 to 8 capfuls per shade. Okay. And one might say, okay, if you need 6 to 8 capfuls, why don't we use all 6 to 8 capfuls all at once? Why do we only use 2 at a time? Which is what we're always going to recommend, never really more than 2 at a time. And the reason being, and maybe this is a good illustration, if this is our pH and this is our alkalinity and this is balance, this is where we want to be. Right out of the tap, our alkalinity is clear up here at 200 to 220, and our pH is balanced. So as the water gets hot for the first several hours, our pH is going to sneak up and become very high. So what we do is we put in 2 capfuls. If we were to put in the 6 to 8 capfuls that we are going to need eventually, what would happen is we would lower our alkalinity from 200, let's say, to about 100, which is perfect. But it's going to take our pH that's 8.5 and move it down to about 5, maybe 5.5. Way too low. So how would we fix that? Well, we would need spot up to raise the pH back up. That's going to end up bumping our alkalinity back up, and we're going to start chasing it and fighting it and balancing it. So what we want to do is 2 capfuls at a time. So let's give you the scenario. 200 on alkalinity, 8.5 on pH. We use 2 capfuls to lower our pH and alkalinity. It takes our alkalinity from 200 to 170. It takes our pH from 8.5 to 7.5, right where we want to be. Then, because this is still up and around 170, our pH is going to start sneaking back up, and when it does and it gets up above 8, we're going to knock it down again. And we're going to lower our pH back down to perfect, and we're going to get down here in the 7.5 range. Our alkalinity is going to go from 170 down to about 140. And again, 80 to 120 is where we want to be. So at 140, we're close, and it may take a few hours. By the way, you can test this after a couple of hours on the spa down with this acid that we're putting in there. But once that pH finally sneaks back up and starts getting above, and it starts pushing 8 and gets above 8, we want to push it back down with 2 more capfuls, or maybe even 1 capful, to go from our 130, 140 down to 120 to 110, which is going to be perfect on our alkalinity. Our pH should be balanced as well. The other thing that we want to pay attention to is what happens if our alkalinity gets low. And a lot of times in the 5th and 6th month, your alkalinity is going to get low. And we might mention this a couple times. What we want to do is recommend that you drain and refill your spa about every 4 to 6 months. As your water does tend to get older, your pH and alkalinity especially will tend to drop and become acidic, and you'll actually need spa up to raise it back up. Now we want to do a spa up. This is our base. It's sodium bicarbonate. Sodium bicarbonate is our spa up, and we want to use this at 2 capfuls per shade as well. And really, to just kind of wrap this whole thing up and put our head around this whole thing. What we want to do, and the easiest way to maintain pH and alkalinity, is, guys, let's pay attention to pH. It's the most important value in your hot tub, easiest thing to control. We want to pay attention to our alkalinity because it's a forecaster for where our pH is going. So if our alkalinity is high, our pH is going to go high. But if our pH is perfect and we think our alkalinity is a little bit off, I wouldn't do anything just yet. But let's watch it and make sure the pH does stay balanced. And also, again, if it does go low, we get into a 40, we get into less than 7 on our pH, we're going to raise it up. And again, you can retest after about an hour. Hopefully you've been able to answer most of your questions when it comes to pH and alkalinity here. We're always available to answer questions at any time. You can call us at the shop. Come on down. We're happy to explain these things to you. Make sure you get it right. We're also happy to test your water for you for free, and make sure that you know exactly how this stuff works so that we can keep our water clean, clear, and perfect. Okay, folks, what we're going to talk about in this segment is sanitizer. This is the 3rd element to keeping our water clean. Again, 1 was filtration, 2 is water balance, 3 is our sanitizer. Sanitizer is what we're going to use to kill our single cell organisms like our bacteria, algae, those kinds of things. It's very important that we maintain proper sanitizer in our hot tub. In this section, we're going to talk about bromine. So we've got our little display here with different products that we're going to use to balance our water with, sanitize our water rather. What we like to provide for everybody is some sort of a way to dose your sanitizer in your hot tub. So we've got a tropical feeder here, or a bromine floater. A lot of spas will also have, I'm not sure if the camera can pick this up, but on an 880 series Sundance or 780 series Sundance, they actually have a bromine dispenser built into the filter weir. It's right up front. You can place tablets in there that will dissolve and over time and provide that balance for you on your sanitizer. So how do we test our sanitizer? We use our tester strips. If we're going to zoom in here, again, it's our 3-way Insta-Test. You guys can pick this one up and follow along if you've got this at home. 1 to 3 is the bracket that we're using. It's actually, if you look closely, the purple numbers at the bottom, the 2 to 6 are actually reading bromine. The black numbers, just for sake of knowing what we're looking at here, are reading the free chlorine. Bromine is the purple numbers. But we want to be in the OK bracket and that color spectrum nonetheless. So how do we do that? Well, what we want to do in the beginning is we need to establish our bromine bank. So we're going to be 0. Maybe we'll open these back up here. We're going to be 0 when we first fill it, and down at the bottom we want to get it up into the purple range. How do we do that to get our bromine bank established? Well, there's a couple ways we can do that. One is we can take a couple of tablets out of our bromine container here. So we like to give you a full bottle of Bromine Spa Essentials bromine tablets. We can take 2 of these guys out. What we want to do is put these in a Ziploc bag or something like that and crush them up into as fine a powder as you can possibly get. put that into the water, usually over the filter system, make sure the pumps are turned on so it's mixing in really well. That in theory is going to get your bromine bank established. So it's going to bounce you from 0 up into the okay range where we want to be on our tester strips. Another really effective way, in fact I probably much more recommend this, is guys, go ahead and get yourself some bromine concentrate. Supply Essentials makes a fantastic bromine concentrate. This is a powder formula. You can use 1 to 2 capfuls. Usually put that in the water, again kick the jets on for 15-20 minutes, mix it in. That will also establish your bromine bank. So when you're very first starting, or if you ever go out and test your water down the road and it's clear down at 0, and maybe even smells a little bit funny, what we want to do is we've got to get that bromine bank back up there quickly. So what we're going to do is crush up a couple of tablets, use some bromine concentrate, or do something like that to get that bromine level back up quickly. Otherwise our water is going to look and smell bad as well. What we do like to do, if you happen to have a tropical feeder, how these things work is there's a lock ring on top that basically holds this down. We can loosen this guy up, and this effectively allows us to open and close our bromine floater here depending on demand. So if you're constantly or consistently testing the water and it's consistently high, well then what you're going to do is close your bromine floater down. If it's consistently low, you're going to want to open your bromine feeder up. We do find that this will keep up under normal conditions and with it mostly opened up all the way rather, and then the lock ring tightened down, so we'll extend that up all the way. There's also some numbers on here that you can see if you want to kind of keep track of where you're at. Under normal use, this keeps up. Normal use is about 2, maybe 3 bodies every other day in the hot tub. If you happen to be some guys, and hopefully you are using the hot tub every day, that's fantastic. This may not keep up, and you may need to get possibly a second one. That's one way to do it. Or what I highly recommend, again, is supplement with a little bromine concentrate, or we're simply crushing up tablets. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys, to maintain our levels. So the neat thing about Sanitizer is what it does, is how I like to explain this, is it's kind of like a fire that goes in and purifies. So if we put a bunch of logs on the fire, they're burning, they're purifying, they're killing bacteria, they're keeping anything in and around that fire clean. But what happens with fire is when it burns out with that wood and that fuel, it ends up turning into ash. So same thing in a hot tub. If we put a bunch of Sanitizer and bromine and or chlorine, because it's a dichlor based product, chlorine is, so it's in the same family, and quite frankly it works very similar to bromine. We'll put that in water. What happens is, as the chlorine and bromine does its job, it turns into a chloramine in the chlorine sense, and in bromine it turns into a product that let's relate to like ash. So how do we get that ash, or those dead cells and bacteria and things that have been in the water that are now dead basically? How do we get those out of the water? Perfect product is an oxidizer. An oxidizer effectively removes those chloramines and makes the water effect on the bottle. It's neat to note that this is oxidize the swimmer waste and makes water sparkle. Okay, this will reactivate your dichlor, chlorine, bromine for a short period of time. We want to use a capful probably once a week if we're using our spa regularly, or as needed. If the water smells funny, looks bad, your bromine levels are super low, I'd probably crush up a bromine tablet to get our levels up and put a capful of shock in there. And when we do that, we just kind of pour it out in the cap here, and we broadcast it out in the hot tub, and I would make sure that the jets are turned on so that it's mixing in the water really good. And then most importantly, when we do oxidize, we want to make sure that we leave the cover open for 15 to 20 minutes, because while it's active and the active oxygen is going to work for you, it's relieving and taking those chloramines and actually lifting them up out of the water and into the atmosphere. And if we have the cover on there, it's not nearly as effective. It'll trap those in there. Those gases are very harmful on the pillows. It'll really have a hard time on your pillows. It'll have a hard time on the top of your cover. Maybe one of the other things just to note real quick that I think we forgot to cover in our balance section is if our water is really low, it can cause the same kind of gases in the water, and it'll eat up your pillows too. If your pH and alkalinity are really low and it's in an acid condition, it's going to eat up your pillows, it's going to eat up the bottom side of your cover, and those are kind of things that warranty's not going to cover either. So it's very evident that if that's the case, although it does appear very similar if you're over-shocking, closing the cover down, or if your pH is low and you're in an acidic condition. So, but if you maintain your calcium, or I'm sorry, but if you maintain your bromine levels, oxidize effectively, the water will stay clean and clear, And if you have questions with any of this stuff, of course, we're always here for you. Give us a call, 801-489-6005. Come into the stores. You can even bring us a water sample and test it for you. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you watching.